So for today's vlog, I felt like I might as well take a page out of Carl Cook's book and do a walking and talking, or riding and talking, to update on some life things that have been going on. I'm just here with my friend Chico, the best Appaloosa in the world. Specifically the best dressage Appaloosa in the world. And no offense to my bestie, lover, horse influencer ever, Endo the Blind, but he has to be my favorite because I actually know him personally, and I don't know Endo. Anyways, there's some big changes coming my way. There's been a lot of change this year, like even like the past 2 to 3 years for me honestly feel like a decade because so much has changed. Like actually we'll say 2 to 4 years. Just there's been so much stuff. There's been a lot of stuff related to like horses, business, like where I've lived, what my plans have been, and also like family and life circumstances that have been less happy. There's been a lot of change throughout the last several years, and I feel like I've lived several lifetimes in that time. So I feel like for people who followed me closely like several years ago, I could now seem like a very different person because there's been so much stuff going on. Anyways, we'll go into all that a different day, but basically the biggest life change as of late is that I will be having to move soon because the place that I've been living at the last 4 years and where I've boarded my horses the last 6 is going to be going for sale. So that means that we can no longer live there. And I'd rather find a solution and a place to be like sooner than later. So we're sorting that out, and once there's like finalized plans and I feel comfortable and safe and we're settled and all the hubbub and scariness of moving this many horses and finding a suitable place is done, I will update on people and where that'll be. But I want to feel like settled in my decision before that happens because I don't like to jinx things. So anyways, that sucks because also in my area it's very hard to find like ethical boarding for horses. Like, and I don't think I could do full board with my horses again. I really don't feel comfortable in trusting their care into a lot of other people's hands, and that's no offense to people because I'm sure there's some fantastic boarding places, but I don't want to go through the trial and error of finding the right one before we get there. So I really just want to keep them on self-care so that I can be in control of like doing the hiring and setting up like the feed programs and everything, because I don't think I can give up that control now that I've had it. So for them so far, like I have a safety net because we found a field that's a 5-acre field that we can use year round, and we got a really good deal for that. So that's kind of the plan for taking the horses there. Like I'm going to take Milo and Banksy there probably today, so that might be even in this vlog, and then it'll just depend on how other things work out because I should have some other land for the other horses, and we can kind of keep horses who aren't in work at one place and the horses who are in more regular work at the other. But my biggest concern with finding like a place to live and a place for my horses is finding like the place that has enough space, because I just cannot take my horses and downgrade them to having less access to horsey life needs than they already have. Like I can't do that to them again because we've been on a streak of improving the way we've done things and I can't regress. So that's been a huge priority of mine. So finding that 5-acre field is a huge relief. And I do recognize that like with what I'm looking for and with what my budget is currently, like my horses will likely be at a place where if their needs are met for like turnout, I probably won't have access to like an arena and stuff. So I'll kind of have to brainstorm ways to overcome that. But again, my priority is their care. And then business wise, if I don't have a place that I can like work horses and train out of and do the board and train, I just kind of have to travel. So I'm glad that I have some good regular clients now. But it will probably change how I do things, which makes me a little bit sad because I think to do like the most good for helping horses with behavioral problem, being able to offer board and train is the best way to do it because then I can take care of everything for their wellness. However, I didn't really have full control over the boarding in the situation I had, so I didn't really get to set up like the care practices in accordance with all of my beliefs. So it was kind of like a compromise. But even still, it allowed me to work with horses several days a week, whereas when I'm traveling, I can't always do that for as many people. It's easier to do it out of a home and a place that you're at. So I think the change that will inevitably come with that is that I'm going to have to downsize on client loads, and I'm not going to be able to take on as many full training horses. And I've already gradually been downsizing because I've been really overworked and exhausted and burnt out, and I've been trying to take more time for myself. And not work myself to the breaking point. I'm still, oh my gosh, he inhaled a mosquito. I'm still working on that, but we're getting there. So I think how that'll change my business is I'm going to try to do more online stuff for training help, and then also try to do clinics locally or further away once I work out the legalities regarding setting up clinics in the US and what type of work visas I need, because it's kind of confusing, and definitely in Canada. So it'll probably be where I'll do like weekend clinics or day clinics rather than doing separate training sessions and board and trains that I can give owners a skill set to take with them and then practice, and then they can kind of do touch-ups with me rather than sending a horse in for full training. And I'm hoping that will be received well, because I've never really done clinics because I felt like it was kind of like big-headed for me to do before I was like established as a trainer. And I'm just like, I'm less comfortable teaching people than I am working directly with the horses, but I think I have been working on my communication and getting more comfortable with that through my podcast and the videos I post. So I think I'm ready for that now, and I'm gonna see how it'll be received, especially locally, because I've grown up in the community. So I know people's perception of me can be different, because if they watch me be like the shitty rider I was with all the bit gadgets I was and all this bullshit that I spewed and just the dumb things that I said over the years, they probably have inherently less respect for me. So it'll be interesting to see, because I know like I'm still young, and that definitely affects how people perceive me, and I'm also trying to do things very differently and change things, and not everyone likes that, but I'm hoping that it'll be received well and people will at least be curious enough to kind of come and listen to what I have to say, because I have a lot of ideas on how to like improve traditional horse training and modern care practices, even like within what we immediately have available, to make it better for the horses. And I think that if I could reach more people in the competitive industry, we could start doing some really good work to show how we can benefit horses' lives without completely uprooting everything as we know it. And that's kind of my goal as of late, like the last few years. That's what I've been moving towards, is I want to find like a balance between two worlds, because I kind of feel like I'm stuck between two worlds sometimes, because I'm really into like the behavior side of things and the clicker training and positive reinforcement now. But I also grew up in the traditional training sector, and I know a lot of people in it, and I see so many people who love their horses, and even if they're technically doing things that are wrong, they still love their horses to death, and it's never with the intent of being malicious. So it's really hard for these people to receive information that makes them feel as if they're wronging their horse. And then sometimes they don't receive it well, and it can make it seem like they don't care because they're not willing to accept information. And I definitely went through a phase like that, so I can understand it. But it is still frustrating to see people react that way, because now that I'm through it, I see how ridiculous it was. But anyway, since I grew up in that traditional training sector, I have like a lot of like respect for competition, and I see the potential that equine competition has to be more ethical, and how we can do a lot of, or all of, the things that we're currently doing with horses in a much more ethical way that aligns better with both the needs and desires of horses and humans. And if we start to meet horses' needs more, they'll be easier to ride, they'll perform better, they'll stay sounder, and it'll resolve a lot of the main issues that we have in competition that make both horses and humans unsafe. So I really want to bring change in that regard and kind of find that happy medium, because I know like I'm probably a tough pill to swallow for people who are really like purist clicker trainer, positive reinforcement types, because I do try to compromise, and like with clients I'm willing to compromise to an extent. Like I have boundaries in terms of where I draw the line, but I'm not like anti-pressure and release. I just do it a lot differently now than I used to, and it's much lower pressure now, and I've learned how to do it with way better timing. And I still do try to incorporate positive reinforcement into every horse's training program, whether or not the owner agrees with it or not, because I try to get them to at least let me do something to show them that it works. Because getting people to take a little bit of something is better than taking none at all. And sometimes if you set that rigidity where you're like, you have to completely transition to positive reinforcement now, or I think you're mean to your horse and you suck, then people get a bad taste in their mouth and they don't want to try it, and they otherwise would have. So I try to find that happy medium. Like if I can get someone to even consider doing games with their horse and teaching them how to target train just for a fun skill to redirect a behavior, then I can use that to show them all the things that target training can do. Because I used to think target training was stupid and just for games and tricks, and I was wrong. So now it's my job to teach people, because that the move is the really big thing. And then there's been big advancements with my business, like obviously with the bridal stuff and like the apparel and stuff. People have seen all of that, but I think I need to do more videos on like the business end of things, because it is an awful lot. And like one thing I do want to say to people is that like when I'm getting all these products in, people need to realize like it's coming directly out of my pocket when I'm ordering all these quantities. I don't have investors. I don't get big loans because I'm still so small and not established that I don't have the background yet to get business loans to the degree that larger businesses can, or people who can co-sign for them can. So all of those products and stuff and all of the orders and stuff, it's all going through me and it's coming out of my pocket. So it's been like a huge undertaking, and it's also pretty high risk because if my products didn't sell, like I could get screwed and like not have any money, because essentially my entire income is in products right now. Which is also why I still try to train as much as I can so that I have like a fallback with extra income coming in. But yeah, it's all been me. Like I'm doing all the business orders and like the tracking and like production, like ordering wholesale in, and like Callie with Equestrian, who lists all my products, does like the shipping, packing, and like receiving and all that once my products are there. And like I'm enormously thankful for her, because there's no way I could have done this on my own if I had to do all of that, because it's something I'm bad at, and with like the volume I just couldn't keep up with it. So I'm so glad that we were able to partner in the way that we were, so that I can help her out and she can help me out, because I couldn't have done this without her. And she also helped me source a lot of production people, because she was already starting to start her business when I was getting into the bridal thing. So she's been like a huge help. But like financially it's all me doing this, and like for doing the orders, talking to like the people who make my products, sourcing products, and deciding ultimately like what I want them to look like, and problem solving and solving any problems. Much of the customer service, social media stuff, all of that stuff is all me. And it is a lot of work, especially when you're doing that with like a highly physical job that is like horse training and caring for horses. So I think that's been a huge part of like burnout, and also the worry, because like when you're giving thousands of dollars away to get a bunch of stuff that you're getting for products, it's scary because you don't know if you're going to get that back at that time, but you need to order in those quantities because they don't do them in small quantities. And even like a small quantity for like a production might be like 100 pieces, but like 100 pieces when you're paying out of pocket is a lot of money. But that's just kind of an example, whereas like big corporations and people with more revenue at their hands could do like 1,000 piece orders or more, and they could save money from that, because the larger order you do, the cheaper it is. And it's also lower risk if they can afford that, so they can get the funds to get companies to take them more seriously and get all those in and have it be lower risk, because they have the revenue or the loans to do so, and it's not coming out of pocket. But I don't have that. So that's been a huge thing in my growth, and like a huge learning curve is learning how to do that, and like doing all the business side of things and doing that stuff. It's been really hard and super stressful, but I'm really thankful for all the people who support my business and do all of the things that they do to support me, even just sharing my posts, commenting on the YouTube videos, liking the YouTube videos, sharing them, shopping my products, sharing giveaway posts, commenting on my stuff, sharing my podcast, listening to them, just existing on my platform in any way. Like I'm so thankful for the help that you've given me, because there's no way I could have done this on my own, and social media has truly played such a huge role in like my education and also my growth as a person and growth as a business person and a trainer. And like there's been so much help from that and so much support over the years that it's like I could not have done this without that, and I'm really appreciative. So I'm appreciative of anyone who supports me in any way, whether you're able to purchase products or not. And as I continue to grow as a business person, my goal is to really get to the point where I'm stable enough that I can start to do more scholarships and stuff to give back, and also create more size inclusive products and have more options for people of all types and more representation, and just do what I can to give back to people. And it's hard to do right now because since I have to do smaller orders, like you do have to order the sizes that are going to sell, and I've already tried to make the size ranges as extensive as possible, but I can't do it to the degree I want to, or it's too high risk for me. So it's kind of crappy because I have to defer to the business side of things, even though like ethically it's not really what I agree with, because I'd like to have options for like anyone who wants to buy my clothes. And that's also like with men's or unisex stuff, or for people who are non-binary. Like I want to have all those options so that it's not even like all gendered clothing. And that's the goal. And I want to be able to give back and help people in the way that people have helped me. And I'm hoping to get to that point where like I'm established enough where my business has grown to the point where I can do all of these things that I want to do, and really dive into a lot of the projects that I have in mind that I think will be able to help the horse industry and people. But it's really tough to do when you don't have the revenue to do so. And it's also frustrating for me to see, because a lot of the people with the most revenue and the most ability to help others choose to keep those resources to themselves. And I'm talking about like billionaire corporations and like the 1% people with more money than most of us could possibly imagine. It's frustrating to me because I feel bad about the lack of ability I have to help people. but comparatively, like, I have like pennies, and I still feel like I'm not doing enough. But like with my pennies, I'm probably doing more than a lot of these like hyper wealthy people. But it's frustrating because I want to do more and I want to be able to be the change that I want to see, but I'm being like roadblocked from doing that because of finances, or doing it as quickly as I want to, I should say. So that's why I'm appreciative when people share my stuff and my business stuff. I totally forgot what I was saying, but there was an injured bird. My dog tried to catch it, so now I have him, and I'm gonna go take him to safety so I can take him to critter care after this. So the bird got away, but he's in the creek. He looked like he could fly a little bit, but now he's still hopping around there in the bottom of the creek. Don't worry, it's not full. He's not drowning. So I'm gonna try to catch him after I'm done with the horses, if he's still down there, because he flew a short ways. So I'm gonna see if he was just stunned. But I feel the need to kiss my own ass for how hard it was to wrangle a bird that is flapping and kind of hopping and hovering a little bit, and catch him while calling off my dog, who would prefer to eat him probably, and holding a horse. So that was difficult. I got him all the way back to the barn, but then he got loose in the cross ties and I closed the doors, but unfortunately he could fit under the gap in the door, so he got away. We'll check on him though and see if he's okay, and if he's not, we'll try to catch him and take him to the wildlife sanctuary. I forget what I was saying before that, completely lost my train of thought, but yeah, basically the whole business side of things and just like the level of expansion and growth the last few years, it's been very overwhelming. And then the amount of change that has come with like the pandemic and like family stuff and like business stuff and like jobs, because like I'm sure you'll remember at the beginning of the pandemic just 2 years ago, I was working for a dressage trainer who made some very racist commentary and tried to pressure me into agreeing with him, and then I left and kind of got fired because he told me to leave, but I was like, yeah, I'm never coming back, and he kind of thought I was going to come back begging. Never happened. But that was only 2 years ago, so it's kind of wild to see how much has just changed in 2 years, because it feels like so much longer than that, and it's overwhelming. So it's been really hard to kind of keep going, and like there's been a lot of like lows and a lot of highs and lots of burnout. So it's been a really steep learning curve, but it's been difficult, and it's much more difficult than I could have possibly imagined. But I'm glad that I'm doing it, and I want to succeed in doing what I'm doing so that I can show other people it's possible, and also point out like the gaps and a lot of like privileges and what people don't realize with the lack of accessibility in every aspect of the world. And I hope to help expose that and also help lessen the gap so that it is more accessible, because I care to do that, and I wouldn't be using my platform or my privilege correctly as I build it if I didn't use it to try to include people who are coming from similar backgrounds to me, because I truly don't believe it should be as difficult as it has been for me to get to where I am, because I've had a lot of support and a lot of privilege even as is, and the fact that it's even harder for a lot of other people is just completely unfair, because there's probably so many talented riders and like visionaries and horse people that we're missing out on because they can't afford to be included, and finance plays such a huge role in how people treat and respect you as well. Phoebe, come on. You're so good. Now we're hacking with Sir Nacho, Phoebe, and the mosquitoes. So anyways, I think those are the most important aspects of the change in my life. Like the move is a pretty big one. I've been less active because of all the stuff going on, and it's just been so busy. Like I've been riding full time and doing the training full time, and then putting in a lot of hours to all the business stuff on the side. So a lot of my social media has taken a back seat, and I've chosen to be more active on platforms where I can just post like quick, easy, consumable things. So like TikTok. But I'm going to try to get more active to post more content, and I've been trying to do a lot of tutorials for my Patreon as well, so that's why less has been getting uploaded onto here. So if you want to see more tutorials and like in-depth lessons on teaching certain things that I trained, they're on there. Also, I think I speak for like all Gen Z millennials in saying that like it's hard to be like positive and active and upbeat when the cost of living is like skyrocketing, and all the things that we were promised would come to us as adults if we did all the right things, like getting a good job, are becoming more and more unattainable. So it's hard to be positive and like set goals and be like, oh yay, like there's so much to look forward to, because it just seems like the bar keeps getting raised. And also with all the stuff relating to like climate change and goings on in the world with that, it's kind of scary, because you're like, I don't know what's gonna happen in the next several years. So it's a weird time to be alive, and it's also a weird time to be trying to like make moves to expand my business, because I'm kind of like, well, like what if the world is just shot by the time I finally get to where I want to be and I can't do anything that I want to do anyways. But despite that, I still keep dreaming, because what I'm really gunning for, like the ultimate goal, is to buy my own property so that I can just control things horsey on my property and have the freedom to like build what I want and not have it be building on someone else's property. So if they decide to sell the property, or if you have to move, you just have to leave it there. I want to have like my own place, and then it'll be really nice because I can put the amount of time and energy that I want to, oh my god, mosquitoes, into building like a paddock paradise and setting up the care for like training horses and my own horses in the way that I want it to be ultimately, and I can improve it at the scale I'd like to and have it make financial sense because it'll belong to me. So that's what I'm really gunning for, but that's like honestly a bit of a pipe dream in this current climate with the housing market and how the cost of living skyrocketing, because like 98% of first-time home buyers in my province get parental help or help from like another entity, because that's how unattainable it is for young people to get property if they're not living with generational wealth, or at least generational assets of a house. And my family did used to have that as an asset, but we lost our house when we had bad business dealings many years back when I was a child, because my uncle embezzled like all of our savings and ended up taking our house, and it was super fun. We went bankrupt. So yeah, it was awesome. But anyways, so that robbed of any likelihood opportunity to make it at least somewhat attainable and less scary to consider getting into the housing market. So yeah, I think I speak for a lot of people in saying that, because I know like whenever I say that the cost of living in BC sucks, people are like, oh well, why don't you just leave and move somewhere cheaper? And it's like, I've lived here my whole life. I like it. I have friends here. I have family here. I'm comfortable here. And I really am not of the mind that people should have to continue moving to try to escape rising costs of living, because then they'd have to continue leaving places that they could afford to live in at one point as the cost of living rises. Plus, if you're working in the area that you're supposed to be able to afford the cost of living in and making minimum wage, you should be able to afford to live there, full stop. You shouldn't be having to like commute from far away or be wealthy to live in certain areas, but the cost of living is making it so. So anyways, that's what I'm gunning for. So people might get annoyed by how often I plug my stuff and how hard I've been trying to like advertise this brand and stuff, but it's because like this is my only shot at getting those things. If this doesn't pan out, I've accepted the fact that it's not for me and it's not going to happen. So I'm really hoping that it does, because my version of business has been a lot more risky because I don't have the same amount of fallback that people who have more support and more investors or like financial support from their family if shit hits the fan. I don't have that freedom, so I just have to get it right and hope for the best. So yeah, it's been stressful and it's been a huge learning curve and it's been busy. And doing that all while having like an online profile where people like me or they hate me, and there's even people who will dedicate like years of their time into hating me and publicly commenting on how much they hate me. So that makes it all exhausting, especially when you're trying to like build self-esteem and like get ahead, because yeah, people will always try to shoot you down. And it's like, yeah, I think one of the lesser talked about things is how much more acceptable it is for people to essentially continue provoking people with platforms online that choose to share their stuff publicly, and they'll post like mean thing after mean thing, even making new accounts once they're blocked so that they can continue harassing this person. And then when they finally succeed in their provocation and get a reaction out of an influencer, usually the person with the platform is the one that gets more blamed, more blame directed at them, which is silly, because at the end of the day, like an influencer is just a person. Like sure, they have influence over larger crowds, and with that can come a certain level of power, but with that said, like the amount of like tact and patience that I've had to develop to deal with the amount of like genuine mean-spiritedness that you have to see and deal with online, and the horrible comments that you can get without snapping, it's hard to do, and there's always a breaking point, so people will snap. But also I feel like, so yeah, it's been hard to grow up online and like in the public eye like that and develop self-esteem when people are constantly trying to tear it down, and like even dealing with like imposter syndrome as a trainer, being younger in the industry and whatnot, it makes all those things harder. So it's been a huge growth journey, and I've had to learn, and yeah, and there's just been a ton of stuff that I finally got under control the last few years, like the ADHD diagnosis, getting put on medication, starting like counseling and therapy and stuff, along with all the business stuff. It's just been a whole lot of stuff that has finally helped me like develop a sense of self and get my ducks in a row and start to really become the person that I want to be. So anyways, thank you for listening to this riding and talking update. I guess the next quick update I'll give is that for those of you who didn't see the other update regarding it, Milo did get his MRI and the results were like best case scenario, and that there really wasn't anything going on. Like, of course you get a write-up, and an MRI is so precise that you get like any little thing, but he had no clinical findings from the standpoint of like anything that needs concern or any chronic issues or anything. So basically his diagnosis is just like long-term bruising and also soreness from how bad his hoof angles have been for so long, and they still need improvement. So we're gonna work on that. He still needed to go in for the arthroscopy, but he's been out on pasture with like a big hill for about a month or two now, and he looks much better. So I might be holding off on the arthroscopy, getting the vet out again for another lameness exam, and seeing what they think to see if we can rehab him with like PRP or something else and save the money on the arthroscopy until we're sure that he needs it. So that's all good news. Banksy is just chilling and growing and being a horse. He's back at my house now, as is Milo, because Milo actually jumped out of their field, so he's lost the privileges of staying there, and I'm gonna bring horses who are nicer to the fencing there. Pogo and Pistachio have just been hanging out at my house. Pogo's been coming back into light work. And yeah, just doing a little bit. My mom's gonna get back into riding him. Pistachio, I'm still working on starting. I've just been so busy that he's kind of been sidelined for many months. So I'm trying to get at that now and start getting everything going so that he can get started and then eventually start getting ridden by other people. Harlow's at my house as well. She's put on a really nice weight. She looks great. She does have like seasonal allergies, and unfortunately she's started head shaking, either because of the allergies or because of like a neurological issue. Right now we're currently trialing medication to see what works, then she may or may not go in for allergy testing. It does seem to at least be partly related to light, so I got her sunglasses that she can wear when we're riding to see if that helps. But yeah, it's been a newer development where it's gotten bad, and like initially when I got her, she had pole soreness and she'd shake her head side to side like they do if something lands in their ear, but this is like up and down head shaking. We're trotting. And it's very consistent with head shaker syndrome, so we're just working on what works for her. It definitely has gotten better than it was, but I want her to be more comfortable before I start her into like work, because I don't really have fun if she's not having fun. So we're getting going on that. But yeah, my horses are fine. They just take a sideline to client horses, and also I want to make sure that they're all happy and comfortable coming back into work before we start doing fun, exciting things that people like seeing and watching. So we just have to get there first, and I really want to get Milo going because he is like my boy, and I want to get him comfortable at least to do some stuff I think would be fun. And with Banksy, he'll get started when he gets started. I'm not going to tell anyone a day or make any plans pertaining to that because there's just no rush, and like we practice stuff that will help him when he does eventually get started, so he's not at a disadvantage. And even if I were to start him like right this second, it wouldn't be like, oh, he's going into a program right now. So there's just like no rush. We're just chilling. Yeah, so we'll see how it goes. Anyways, thank you for watching this. If you're interested in checking out any of my bridles or products, all the links are down below in the description, and you can check those out and shop them there. The bridles just got restocked, and then rose gold bridles are going to be getting stocked early beginning of the week next week. There's really limited quantities with this first order because the full production order is not ready yet, so it's going to be pre-orders, and then any remaining quantities will get listed on the website. So if you didn't pre-order and you don't want to miss out, I would get in there ASAP. I've also released a lot of really nice base layers and summer riding shirts that need to go, so if you want to check those out too. I've tried to keep the prices affordable and give lots of size options for everyone, so you can check those out at the link below. Oh Lord, she coming. There she is. Hi worm. Hi wormy.